Hello.
Hey Michael, how's it going?
Hey guys.
Doing pretty good. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I've got my RIP Bitcoin shirt on today in
Nice.
light of market activities.
Yeah, it's rough. But it's okay. Just when everybody thinks it's over, it's probably about to kick off. But who knows? Everybody thinks it's over though. So that means it's probably going to go up.
I haven't seen sentiment this bad since a Terra Luna SBF crash in the last cycle.
Yeah, it does feel
You
like
would
that.
you would think something actually bad was going on.
Just cooling off for our next leg up.
Hello.
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 Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hey. Now it's working. Okay. So let's start with the meeting. Let me share my browser. And welcome to this week Hiero TSC meeting. Like any of our Hiero meetings, this is an open meeting. I see already several people here joining who are not on the TSC. We have a public agenda, a public calendar. You can find the invites to all our Hiero meetings in that calendar, like for example the TSC meeting that just started. You can easily subscribe to that calendar, and in the meetings you then find the Zoom link and all other information for them. And if you miss a meeting, for previous meetings, you can find a summary, an AI-based summary of the meetings, and for many, like the TSC meeting, even full recording of that meeting. And since our meetings are open, everybody is invited to join and discuss with us topics around Hiero. And if you do so, please take notice that all our meetings happen under the Code of Conduct of the Linux Foundation and the antitrust policy of the Linux Foundation. And with that, let's move to the agenda for today. I actually missed to check it. Brendan, what is the state of our previous minutes? Everything good?
So we are just waiting for approval on. Let me see if we have approval on our ones for. We have any approval for the meeting on the 21st and approval for our last meeting on the 28th, but those are all in pull requests in the repository,
Okay.
so you can still go and review them.
Okay, we'll check that out. Great. Which brings us to the second point, which is the HIPs. I already opened the HIP overview, and like decided last time, we would like to vote on HIP 1299. Actually, our idea was to do an asynchronous vote. Jessica and I were not able to find a date in our timeline, so we now have on our to-do list to share the knowledge, because I have no idea how to do it without Jessica. Hope in future I can do it on my own, or Jessica can do it on my own. But this means that we need to move the voting for HIP 1299 now to this meeting. I see Mark is here. I see Joseph is here too. So we had several discussions on it last time, just didn't vote because Stoyan and Georgie, for example, were not here based on this horrible time conflict where Europe already has changed to winter time and US not. But I believe we can, hey Alex, just do it here and directly start with the voting. Let me just double check if we have Chrome. It's yeah, easy. We can easily do the voting. Anybody from the TSC has a problem with doing a voting on HIP 1299 today? Let me just open it for the voting. Okay, that's good. So let's vote on that one. Let me open. Here we go, so that I have a view I can go through. So Stoyan, you're first.
Yep, I vote yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Brendan,
I vote yes.
Michael,
But yes,
Richard,
Yes.
Georgie,
Yes.
Milan,
Yes for me.
Alex.
Approved, yes.
I approve too, which means HIP 1299 is approved. Again, thanks to Mark and Joseph for presenting that HIP, answering all the questions, and so on. And yeah, congratulations for getting it through here and getting it approved. That's great. Oh, and coming back to the HIP tracker. So That was the only one we had here in Hiero review or last call. As you can see, there are currently like 4 hips in work. So yeah, I assume in any of the future meetings we will have a look at those and a presentation of those. Anything else, Mark or Richard, regarding hips or Michael? I see you're here too. That should be shared with the TSC, or are we good here?
I think we're good for today.
Perfect. Okay.
Joseph, did you know of anything, or Mark?
Not for today. That was my understanding also.
Okay.
Good. Okay, which brings us to the next topic, and that is a topic Stoyan. I had a meeting with Stoyan, and he suggested to maybe talk on the X402, and if that could be something interesting for Hyro, and to have a better understanding on that or a common knowledge, I asked Stoyan if he would be able to do a short, like some minutes update presentation on what it is, so that we can think about, is that something where we believe like having a project in Hyro would make sense. And Stoyan, should I stop sharing? Do you have something prepared, or how do you would like to handle it?
Yeah, I can share. I
Okay.
have a very small document, but there's a particularly useful sequence diagram there. Pum, pum. So I don't know if everybody's familiar with X402, but just a quick summary. It's an open source protocol that's started by Coinbase mainly, and the main goal for it is to revive a dormant HTTP status code 402, which is payment required. And basically, it would allow developers to create paid APIs. And the main interesting part here is that it allows AI agents to make calls to such APIs and then settle the payments on chain. So Base defined the protocol. Coinbase, they implemented it for their Base network. And I believe payments are probably done in USDC. But it's an open protocol, so in theory, nothing stops us from implementing it or a similar protocol on Hedera. And yeah, I think it's maybe interesting to analyze and investigate a little bit, to think about it, because um, there's a lot of hype around X402 today, and there are I think a couple of other protocols. One was called the third, that other big teams are creating to solve the same problem. And it could be like a low-hanging fruit for Hedera to, and for Hiero in general, to take advantage of as well. So quickly go through the diagram here. It's pretty simple. Basically, a client or AI agent calls some resource server, calls some endpoint. The server returns 402, which is payment required, but also some details about how the payment can be completed. And then the client signs an EIP 712 message. So no transaction required from the client side, but a signed, cryptographically signed message, calls the same endpoint again, but providing the message in the headers. And then the resource server contacts a facilitator server that can actually settle the payment on chain, and then yeah, the client can get access to this paid endpoint. it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, there's a lot of hype around this right now, especially for enabling AI agents to make payments. And yeah, I wanted to see if in general this is something interesting for us for Hiero, if anyone is already working on something like this.
We just seen it in the chat. It looks like, oh yeah, Brandon, go forward.
I was just gonna say, Stoyan, that was an awesome recap of X402, and I mean, it feels kind of inevitable just because I mean you hit the nail on the head. This when you load a website and you see some kind of error, like an error, 404 or 503 or whatever, it's these errors that tell you there's something wrong with your connection, and there is an error 402, which basically means like you haven't paid any money, and it's been around forever, but we haven't had the technology to take advantage of it. So this is really exciting for me, and I think it slots really well into the ethos of Hedera. I mean, you think about Lehman Baird's original vision, which is anyone being able to carve out their area of cyberspace and make it their own. And it's kind of the plumbing for that is already here. So I think X402 is going to be a huge accelerator for Hedera, posturing as the epicenter for these agentic ecosystems and economies. And at HGraph, we do have a really powerful MCP server that works in ChatGPT and Claude currently, that we have folks doing some early testing with really great results. And it just gets me so excited because when you have on our end, when you have a product everyone's so hungry to use, you start to go, okay, well, how do we want to transact that value? And it's so crazy that it's already kind of here. And this chart, this diagram that you've got up on your screen, this is really the treasure map, to getting that plugged in. So this gets me really excited. This is something HGraph is incredibly excited about. And I don't really see the X402 stuff as hype. I see it as really picking up where the internet left off, really. And I think it's our duty to do that, just because the technology that we talk about, on-chain payments, transparency, distributed systems, decentralization, this is like it feels like we went into the attic and dusted off the box and discovered a treasure that's been here the whole time. So I'm very excited about it, and I'd encourage everyone to check out. Yeah, Mark shared the fork of the X402 stuff. I mean, this is really exciting stuff. So cannot wait to dive in more and appreciate the breakdown style.
Thanks. By the way, when I say hype, I mean it in the positive way. I mean,
Oh yeah, exactly. I wanted to clarify because I know some people can think of that differently, but it is very hype. That's for sure.
So, Brandon, when you say you have an MVP, is that about a facilitator server that is running against Hedera, or what do you mean? Because I've just seen what Michael wrote, and I agree with what he's saying, that having a facilitator in front of an Hiero network, that could be an interesting thing for Hiero to create that as a small service, open source in the Hiero repo. So is that something you are doing, or are you doing a different way? And another question maybe to Michael. I just clicked on your link on Hashgraph Online with the 900 whatever services that already supports it. Is that all like services based on Hiero or Hedera? Can you maybe say something about that? That would be super interesting.
No, it's all X402 service providers throughout the Web2 and Web3 ecosystems. But I do think it's a massive opportunity to look at integration points for setting up either like an open source template or something in the Hiero project for adapt to kind of integrate. You clone it, and then you could put a payment gateway in front of your application. Like, for example, imagine in front of hgraph.com and you want to get a subscription. to the API, you put an X402 gateway that's available. Now agents can go pay for credits so that they can make API calls using the Marinode services. If you make it templated enough and it's easy to kind of like integrate, then every dApp can do that quite easily. And I think HUSDC plus HBAR, pretty good opportunities there.
Yeah, and I can answer that question you had too, Hendrik. Is so I'm not talking about an MVP. I'm talking about an MCP server, another three-letter
Okay,
acronym.
yeah. Sorry, yeah, okay.
No worries. And just a little background, maybe for folks unfamiliar. Obviously, many know that MCP stand for model context protocol from Anthropic, and essentially the idea is a large language model is just like a super genius in an empty room, right? And you talk to it through the door. Maybe you want to ask it what the time is. It doesn't know. You want to ask it to browse the internet. It can't. So you give it these tools, right? You'll see in ChatGPT and these different apps where now these, models can browse the web and they can do all these exciting things, make you PDFs and everything like that. And so what we've developed at HGraph is just another tool, right? It's the HGraph tool. And what that tool gives to an LLM is the ability to A, have context that it needs to use the Hedera network, and B, tools to use our GraphQL API, the REST API, and the JSON RPC relay. So you can ask an LLM something like, what happened on Hedera yesterday? Or give me a portfolio breakdown of this account, or what was the most recent activity on this particular topic? And it can go write its own query, and then our MCP can deliver the message to the LLM, and then the LLM can present that information to the user. So it's just another tool in the toolbox, and it works really well alongside. And when we talk about X402 and all the incredible things that Michael's doing with Hashgraph Online, and we're a part of that organization as well, is it all just, the exciting thing is this stuff is all just starting to fit together a little bit. And the common thread, I think, that's starting to emerge is the Hedera network, right? So I think that's the very exciting thing is in the AI industry, there's all these different pieces everyone's excited about. And we're just, I think, so fortunate to be in this ecosystem and in these conversations because, yeah, it is emerging that the underlying network that can bring some of these things together in a cohesive way is Hedera. So we're in the right place at the right time, and it's just about moving fast. And I think that we're doing all the right things. So it's very exciting.
Alex.
Yeah, I was actually building on top of that. It is very exciting, and you think about what are the ways that this can be implemented for Hedera in extending into native tokens as well as the wrap tokens, stable coins, and having a discovery service that can determine, flexibly, the payment, currencies that you would want to present availability for, in front of the buyer or the seller that they want to support, and having that all orchestratable as part of the whole payment flow. So you have this base X402 payment flow, but then taking advantage of some of the native capabilities on a Hiero network with the token services and so forth. That's where the additional, I would say, development would need to be to map those out and use those in a portable way. So I think it's one, defining the kind of the patterns, and then two, defining the needs from a network out as well as a user in perspective. And I think the challenge here is where do we think this best fits in the stack from an integration point of view. Obviously bringing it way too close into the center probably doesn't make too sense, but to the extent that we can standardize how that interfaces into Hedera would make sense from a standards perspective. So I think this is just a really interesting, and I think something worthwhile to see how we can kind of promote within Hiero.
Michael.
Um, Alex, it's in terms of the integration point, I think the most interesting place to explore, and I think you're right, like we don't want to put X402 in front of the consensus nodes, for example. It shouldn't be at the protocol layer. I think the best place to kind of position it is the template kind of format, where you have a Hiero repo that you can easily clone and put in front of your own decentralized application, which handles the facilitation of payments to your service immediately. So you just clone it, put it directly in front of your repo, provide guides and instructions for things like Cloudflare, for example. So you just hit one command and boom, it's up in production. And now you're taking payments. And then you have like a plugin ecosystem or something. So for example, if somebody does make a payment, then you put in a hook and now you're able to get credits for whatever your platform is or whatever the thing is that you're enabling people to do. Maybe it's an on-chain transaction, maybe it's a use of credits on a service like HGraphs, for example. But just having that clonable repository that you can easily run, have examples, and then push straight to production so you can start messing around with it. I think that would make a lot more sense from a usability perspective. And where we are today with AI is there is kind of a lot of hype with these things. Most of us, when we use AI, we're still interfacing with large language models like ChatGPT and Anthropic, but there is a growing interest around small language models and development of small language models. For example, Samsung just launched a 12 million parameter model that gets a 94 percentile on Sudoku Max. If you're not familiar with how AI models work, 12 million is very, very small. It means that you can run a bunch of those on your phone, for example, like an Android device easily, versus a large language model like Qwen, you would actually need a lot of compute to do that. So as small language models take off and by proxy agents will kind of take off, you will be prepared for that agentic economy where everyone can run these agents, and then you'll need things like these X402 facilitators and providers. Today, we're still kind of developing that in the AI ecosystem, and it's kind of just positioning yourself so that you're prepared for when these things kind of take off.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I was just thinking how that some of these things can weave in together in that pattern-based model, whether it's with some of the things we've been talking about, like Hiero hooks and how that fits into payment flow, or can exercise, post or pre-payment activities as well as allowances and things like that, and which are unique characteristics that we can bring to bear. Yeah, sorry, Richard. I know you're
So the question I have is, I think that, the opportunity, it seems perfect, and it's very interesting. People are picking this up. The thing that I've been wondering is what are the mechanics of getting adoption? What does the go-to-market actually look like for this thing? Because ostensibly somebody's going to be hosting one of these servers that is able to talk to Hedera, and how do we convince people to either use those hosted servers or adopt them? Do we commit to the base server code? Coinbase has the repo that they were doing for X402. Do we commit to that so that whoever deploys one of those things can potentially talk to us? How are the different networks going to, what is going to be the driving determinant factor for um, I guess, is it for the vendor? Who's making the decision of which network is going to hold their funds? Who's making those decisions, and how do we do go to market?
The short answer would be the decentralized applications. I think usually the decentralized applications are the ones who are running X402 service providers. So you're not necessarily marketing to other L1s and L2 ecosystems. Instead, you're kind of marketing straight to the developers who would be adopting and running these servers in front of their applications to take payment.
But I thought that the big sell here was that X402 allowed legacy Web 2 developers to be able to participate in this economy. So those are not going to be your dApp developers. How do you get them?
I looked at the white paper after I talked with Stoyan about it, and the answer to your question, Richard, is that when I have a service, independent of what kind of service it is, and I have an endpoint and I want that people pay money to call that endpoint to get the data out of that endpoint. The 402 HTTP response that I send contains information about like where to send the money to, on what network, and what does it cost. So like I, as a provider of an endpoint that should be paid for use, define what network I support and already define like that is my address on that network.
Right, and I assume that the resource owner, like if I were a resource owner, I frankly don't care what network is going to be used because so here's the problem. I've got users out there and those users want to be able to pay me money. And I've got a resource that they want. I want to make sure that every user possible can pay for this resource. So if that user has an account on Hedera, that user has an account on Base, that user has an account on Binance or whatever, I don't really care where they have their account as long as they're willing to pay for the resource. Now, I'm going to want to change my price depending on which I mean, I have a price that I want to make, and then whatever the additional fee is, that's up to the user and the network that they're using. So it seems to me like the resource owner is going to be incentivized to say, anybody out, I want as broad an option as possible, and I don't care what chain people use. And the um, the person who's paying for it needs to have an account somewhere. If they don't have an account somewhere, then they can't pay for this resource. I assume that's how it works. Um, and then the resource owner doesn't want to run a server that integrates with all these different things. He just wants to use a server that integrates with all these things. So somebody else is running the server that talks to different networks. But the resource owner is not going to also want to wire up to lots of different servers for lots of different networks. Again, that puts the burden on them for supporting the whole world of users. So it seems to me that the adoption path here is I, as a resource owner, I just own a resource. I don't know anything about Web3 and I don't care. I have a bunch of customers out there who want to pay for stuff. And I want to have some kind of a service provider that I get to call that does all of the payment rail stuff. And all I have to do is put a interceptor on my web service call, and voila, I can charge for this stuff. The rest of it's automatic. So then the question is, um, that person, whoever that resource owner is, they're going to choose which service provider they're using that actually does all the payment systems. And we need to make sure that Hedera is in that service provider's payment system. And how do we do that? That's the real question.
Stan, do you want to answer on that? Your hand is first. Otherwise, I would answer directly to it, or do you have something else?
Yeah, I can just share my 2 cents here. I think Richard, first, I totally agree, and that's why I think we should act quickly and like have something to propose to these resource providers. Um, and maybe the path to adoption here is just to have the better option for them, like have um, simple to use facilitator server that actually works well and is easy to integrate and can serve different use cases. And that was the other thing that I wanted to mention. There are a couple of other protocols emerging that are a little bit different than X402. I think it's worth to also have a look at them and just create our own comprehensive understanding of exactly what features we want to support. We can support X402, but then also support, for example, Cloudflare has a deferred protocol, Circle has a batched standard, so we can look at different options, and maybe that's one way to be better than the alternatives. Like we can support all of the use cases that clients may need. Yeah.
And I totally agree with what you said, Richard, and the spec or the white paper of X402 currently, if I understood it correctly, allows exactly one payment provider that you give back to your client, to the caller. And I hope that this change in future, that you say like, oh, those are, you know, the options you can pay for calling this endpoint. Choose one and send it to me. And on the other hand, I totally agree. It would be so good if there would be like a server facade that you can, you know, like have a filter on your side and just call the server facade with the information, and then the payment happens automatically. I assume to get there, more than one network needs to implement X402 and say like, hey, it don't make sense to have just one service provider because we are here. There's another one that supports Ethereum, maybe something else supported. For Hiero, I would even suggest to not only have like one network identifier, because it's easy to say like, this is the Hedera network, this is the Ethereum network. But if you want a Hiero network, you need like, oh, that is an Hiero network, and maybe this is an endpoint or something like that. But from my point of view, to move into that direction, you need to have something to show like, hey, this is how it could look like, and we have it implemented. But now we need a way to choose between like Ethereum and Hedera or whatever. So I hope that this will be like version 2 of the white paper, with impact coming from other ledgers like us. So I'm seeing Richard's question, which is, there's a standard committee working on it. So they have this x402.org web page now, and this looks quite like we want to create something which is more than one company. If they already have a well-defined committee and things like that, I don't know. I think that is something we should figure out.
Yeah, I think that
Also,
the important thing for us is we as a Hiero TSC should nominate somebody to join that foundation and participate. Because what we need to do is we need to make sure that a system is not being created that's going to end up disenfranchising users. So if you have a user who's a Hedera user, they need to be able to participate in this system without having to go open an account on another chain just so they can use payments. So I think it's really important that we have representation in that group and that we're helping to steer this thing. Because on its merits, if we had a facilitated server that supported Hedera plus all the other chains out there, on its merits, I would expect to see a large amount of adoption on Hedera and Hiero networks because our performance is so good and our prices are so low. And so they're fixed. They don't vary. If I'm um, yeah, I just have to imagine that this plays so well to us. We want to make sure that we have an opportunity to compete on even terms. What we don't want is to have some kind of a standard that a huge, paid for sales force is pushing out into the world and people are picking up that has sort of a built-in winner and loser in it. We want to make sure that it's an actual market and there's an opportunity. So we need to join this. And yeah, if they're setting up some kind of foundation for it, then that's kind of perfect. We just need to be active participants in that, not passive.
makes sense to me. Oh, Mark is just sharing a link about an interview regarding X402 and
Ye-
Hedera on YouTube.
Yeah, I would just encourage you to anybody interested, reach out to Jay Cool from HGraph. So yeah, they've been working on it for a few months now. I think, yeah, we do have a Hedera facilitator already developed. So yeah, I think we already have a great foundation to build on. This isn't a fresh effort here by any means.
So I see Michael says he's happy to help, and Brandon nominated this legend to go. Do you guys should I don't know if we need a vote. This is
ist eine
formal.
komplett maßgeschneiderte App. Einfach, indem du daran denkst.
I
Das ist
agree.
Spotify.
Sorry.
Hendrix AI is voting
Push
yes.
the button.
I copied the YouTube link and German advertisement started.
So yeah, I think I would favor that if Michael, if you wanted to reach out to that group and figure out how we could join it and then report back, I think that would be amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
And yeah, Jake did sort of explore this, oh man, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, almost 2 months ago. So we had some idea about how Exo 402 would work, but we never got past the sort of initial stage. So I'm really excited that Stoyan, you got energy around this as well. And I think, and Brandon and everybody. So I think this is really important. I think this is one of those things I saw it and I thought, oh man, you don't want to be late to this game. You want to be there early. And we were trying to figure out like, how do you do the go-to-market? How does this work? So I think that now that they've got some kind of foundation we can join, we can kind of solve that part of the problem. We're just such a natural fit for it. So it makes a lot of sense.
I think also with the stablecoin legislation recently, this is gonna be another pouring gas on this fire a little bit.
Okay, anything else on that topic? Good. So the other topic we have on our agenda is any other business. Does anybody have another topic he or she would like to bring to the TSC, discuss here in that meeting, make us aware of?
Small reminder of looking into the Hiero Ledger org discussions. Sorry that I'm bugging you guys with this.
Oh, that's good. Okay. If not, we can stop 15 minutes early this time. Thanks for being here in the meeting. Thanks, Stoyan, for giving that overview on X402. Really great discussion on it. Thanks, everybody, and yeah, see you in any other Hiero meetings this week.
All right, thanks. See ya.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.